This episode of the Dorking Out Show podcast is brought to you by Pied Piper, compression software whose goal is to help humanity thrive.
And the letter C. C is for cookie. But that's not really good enough for me. You know, flowers would be nice.
Houston, flight is go.
Mila, let's go. SPM. Safety contact.
From Assignment X, Amalgamated Storytelling, and thesoniashow.com, it's The Dorking Out Show with Christopher Allen Smith and Sonia Mansfield. Welcome to episode 9 of Dorking Out, a podcast for people who like to dork out about stories and the stories in pop culture that we love. And there's going to be a lot of them in this episode tonight, or today, or whatever non-specific time you happen to be listening to this. That means movies and TV, books and podcasts, and pretty much everything else is what we like to talk about here. With me today is my co-host, professional writer and author of The Sonia Show, Sonia Mansfield.
Hey there.
Hello.
With me today is my co-host, Emmy Award-winning filmmaker and nerd author, Christopher Allen Smith.
So in today's episode, we will be talking about movies we are most looking forward to. Wow. We will be talking about strokes and how you can have a stroke in the middle of delivering your show intro. We will be talking about the movies we are most looking forward to this fall. Plus, are fans the worst thing about the things that we love? Sometimes. We talk about fandom and entitlement and what it means to love something that is outside of your control. All of that and our favorite headlines, probably Sonia's because I didn't come up with one. So let's get started.
Topic 1. The fall movie season is almost upon us. What used to be 3 months of movies that didn't make the summer blockbuster cut or weren't quite good enough to get an Oscar push, or horror movies trying to cash in Halloween, has turned into an awesome time of the year for movies. So Smith and I have been studying up, and we're ready to share the movies that we are most looking forward to seeing this fall. I should clarify that the dates we used for the fall movie season were from Labor Day to right before Thanksgiving. So if you're wondering why Rogue One isn't on the lists, well, that's why.
Got cut out on a technicality.
Yes, you'll have to wait for the holiday movie preview or winter movie preview for that.
That's right. For some of you like me who are expecting this preview to encompass the rest
You know what?
of the year.
You know what? Traditionally, we let the co-host who doesn't do the intro go first, but now you've made me mad, so I'm going first.
All right.
So my first pick, one of the movies I'm really excited to see this fall, and I'm prepared to be mocked for it, is Bridget Jones's Baby. It's coming out September 16th, and I'm fully prepared for your wrath. Go ahead, your laughter, bring it.
No, you know what? Here's the
I'm
thing.
excited to see Bridget Jones's Baby. I'm a really, really big fan of the first Bridget Jones movie. I thought it was really funny and really romantic, and I super love it. And even though I didn't like the sequel, I'm still going to see this one because I'm a completist. I have to see the trilogy.
You know what? I'm not going to give you a hard time because I do like nice, like romantic comedies or whatever. They just don't make a lot of good ones. But I want to throw an idea past you because your anticipatory defensiveness about being mocked for this, I don't think is entirely misplaced, because I think there are certain genres or certain types of movies, almost no matter how good they are, critics just like to take shots at them.
Yeah. I think that's the romantic comedy. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's the thing is romantic comedies get an unfair amount of guff, just like I think horror movies get an unfair amount of guff, and actually a lot of comedies get an unfair, I would say that the average Rotten Tomatoes rating of a comedy or a horror movie or a romantic comedy is lower than, just straight up dramas or action movies or whatever. So, yeah, you know what? If you want to go see Bridget Jones's Diary, I mean, some of the best movies of the last 30 years were kind of romantic, romantic comedies of some sort. Like, your Notting Hills, your Say Anythings, your Jerry Maguires or whatever.
Right.
They're when they're done right.
Or your first Bridget Jones.
Right. Yeah. When they're done right, they're fantastically fun movies to watch, and maybe this one will be good. So who knows?
Yeah. I have to say, like, the previews don't like super do it for me because, the whole idea is that she's pregnant and she doesn't know who the father is. And I'm like, well, you could just get a test for that.
That's all. That might not be the most romantic. I have not seen the preview, but having had it just
like she's super pregnant at some point. I mean, she's like, giving birth at the end and she still doesn't seem to know who the father is. And I'm like, well, I'm pretty sure you could do tests for that, but that's okay.
Ooh, that sounds awful. Now I am going to make fun of you. That just sounds horrible.
But I'm still going to see it because my goodwill from the first movie knows no bounds, apparently.
So was this Bridget Jones? Because I don't think there are 3 Bridget Jones books, right?
I think there are, but I actually don't think the third book. I don't think this is based on the third book.
So I guess what we've learned here today, kids, is sometimes if you go to Chicago and you work real hard as a production assistant on the Jerry Springer Show, eventually you can get into screenwriting and write a Bridget Jones sequel.
All right, fine. What's your first pick?
All right, well, now here's the thing. Is my first pick, I'm not as defensive, I don't think, but I think maybe I should be a little defensive. It is Clint Eastwood's new movie, Sully, starring Tom Hanks as the heroic pilot that landed his plane in the Hudson, saving everyone on board. It's a big national thing a couple years ago. And the reason I say defensive is Clint Eastwood has directed some of the best. This is going to be a theme in my movies that I'm looking forward to. Clint Eastwood has directed some of the best movies of the last 20 years. He like
$1 Million Baby.
$1 Million Baby. Oh, I forgot about that. Mystic River. He directed Unforgiven, maybe my favorite Western of all time, and definitely his best Western of all time.
Right.
He directed, but then he's directed, it's interesting. He directed American Sniper that somehow got this reputation as kind of glorifying war. But I watched that movie, and anybody that thinks that makes war look glorious is just, I think they're nuts.
Well, I didn't even see it.
Yeah,
so I can't speak to that.
It's a hard movie. However, half the time, Clint Eastwood movies they're like watching paint dry. They're just so boring. They're so not backwards, but they're just, it's like the spark isn't there for some reason.
Yeah, what's the one he did? He did one recently about like baseball.
Oh, that's right.
With Amy Adams, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, gosh, even like awesome Amy Adams can't make me want to see that movie. Or Gran Torino, I didn't see that.
Gran Torino was interesting. I was not super in love with it, but it kind of plays off his. See, that's the thing is, I think Clint Eastwood. Actually, what I was going to say is I think Clint Eastwood gets kind of a bad rap for his reputation, but then I remembered he was on the. Kind of made a fool of himself at the 2012 Republican convention.
Yeah, well, now he's, kind of a grumpy old man.
Well, that's the thing, is he has a reputation for being a grumpy old man. And maybe he does say some stuff that's not all that great, but if you look at his body of work, it's really a lot more impressive than, he directed Letters from Iwo Jima. He directed, his body of work is really pretty fantastic.
Yeah.
And a lot more nuance. I don't know if there's any movie about rejecting a life of violence and trying to make yourself better that's better than Unforgiven. It's almost like, the story behind Unforgiven is he bought that script, I think, in the early 80s. And he basically said, I'm not old enough to play this, but when I do, it's going to be an awesome movie. And he sat on it for like 15 years.
Yeah, Unforgiven's going to come up a little bit later on my list, too.
Yeah, exactly. It's... that's right. He directed Bridges of Madison County.
That movie was fine.
It was fun. No, exactly. It was right. It was, let's see, he directed Heartbreak Ridge, which was meh. The Changeling, which I did not see. Letters from Iwo Jima, which was an interesting experiment because he directed Flags of Our Fathers and Letters from Iwo Jima, I think at the same time. They were kind of like two halves of the same fight, one from the Japanese perspective, one from the
I
American.
remember that.
And it was boring. It was so boring. Anyway.
So the thing about Sully that kind of confused me was I didn't realize, well, I guess I didn't know the whole story. So I was like, well, Sully's a hero. Dude landed a plane, everybody survived. The end.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh no, he was super crucified and this happened and they went after him. And I'm like, I don't remember that at all.
I think that's the thing and we'll have to see. I think what happened is, most of America saw it on cable, said, oh, wow, look at what that guy did. Awesome.
Yeah.
But then like the NTSB, who has to take this stuff a little bit more seriously, was, hey, that looks great. However, you crashed a plane in a river, so we're going to ask you a lot of questions.
Yeah.
So, which makes sense. So we'll see. But, yeah. I am looking forward to it, but I freely admit this could be one of the boring, not fun Clint Eastwood movies.
Right.
However, Tom Hanks is one of those actors. There are a few actors out there that choose their roles much more carefully than most actors. And Tom Hanks chooses his roles very, very good. Chances
that's
are,
why
if
he's
he
super
signs up-
high
Exactly.
on the FPJ scale.
He is at the top. He's maxed out on the FPJ scale, the Freddie Prinze Jr. scale. For those of you wondering what we're talking about, go back a couple episodes. It's all there. Tom Hanks is a legend. Tom Hanks is one of the greatest Hollywood stars of all time. When movies are done, Tom Hanks will be remembered.
Yeah, and when he stars in a movie, you have to take notice.
Yeah.
There's no shame in having a Tom Hanks movie on your list.
Yeah, exactly. So, what's your next choice?
So my
Mansfield?
next choice was one that was kind of also on your list, but we kind of wrestled over some of our picks.
That's right.
So I'm really excited for the remake of The Magnificent Seven, which is coming out September 23rd. I'm a really big fan of Westerns. I really like them. So I'm really, really excited. I think it's got a really great cast with Denzel Washington and Chris Pratt and Ethan Hawke. And I have to say, though, I actually haven't seen the original Magnificent Seven. Mm-hmm. Even though I really like Westerns, for some reason, I have never seen the original. So now I'm like, well, should I see the original before I watch this remake, or should I just watch the remake and then I'll go back?
No, just watch. Well, yeah. If you want to see the original before you watch this, go watch Seven Samurai.
Yeah,
because that's
right.
what the Magnificent Seven was remaking.
Yes.
Or you could.
By the way,
fun.
I went through this when the Coen Brothers did True Grit. Mm-hmm. I for some reason also had not seen the original True Grit, and I was like, well, should I see the original True Grit and then go see the movie? And I ended up seeing the Coen Brother one first, and then went back and watched.
What did you think of John Wayne's? I think that was one of his last big westerns.
I like that one too. I like them both. I really liked the Coen Brothers one a lot.
Yeah, I think the Coen Brothers. We'll probably talk about this when the Magnificent Seven comes out. But I have a theory that kind of goes along with Bridget Jones and comedies and romantic comedies getting bashed on. I have a theory that westerns, on average, are actually much better movies than other movies out there.
Maybe
because they're so out in Hollywood. They're so archaic. They were once so. I think 1 in 3 movies at one point was a western.
Right.
But then they just crashed and crashed and crashed, and they have this reputation of, people don't like westerns anymore. So in order for a studio to say, all right, we're going to make this one, it has to be, like, the script has to be bulletproof. It has to be fantastic. But I don't know. We'll see.
Well, do you remember when they were trying to make Westerns all the time? So we had like Young Guns and Young Guns 2 and like Texas Rangers and The Quick and the Dead.
That's
and
right. Yes,
we
I
had
do.
all of
Yeah.
these Westerns, and some of those weren't bad, but some were bad.
That's true. Yeah, you know what? I think they tried to do a revival. I'm thinking more like the kind of the modern, the True Grit, Open Range. It still breaks my heart.
Oh, Open Range was so good.
Open Range has one of the greatest gunfights in Hollywood history. It is
So good.
unbelievably good. Like it is, I feel bad because people kind of snicker at Kevin Costner about, he made Dances with Wolves and then he made The Postman.
Yeah, I like Kevin Costner, actually.
I'm
an
really
apologist.
Yeah, well, you don't see that's the thing. You don't need to apologize for Kevin Costner. Just put in Open Range, and this is a great way to sort your friends. This is like posting something political on Facebook. You find out who your real friends are.
Yeah.
Put in Open Range, and the first person to talk crap, boom, out. Get out of my house. Don't come back. And on that note, we're going to talk about my next pick, which is kind of a modern Western, in that this is the genre that is eating Hollywood alive, and frankly, I'm completely content with that. That is comic book movies, Marvel movies in specific, Doctor Strange more specifically.
This was also on my list, but
That's right.
I changed my list.
One of my favorite things going on in Hollywood right now, probably even more favorite to me, if that's a phrase, which it's probably not, more favorite to me than the return of Star Wars movies is what Marvel is creating with their cinematic universe. I have never once read a Doctor Strange comic book. I'm not even sure I've ever actually seen one out in the wild. But it's their next movie. It looks kind of interesting. It looks pretty trippy. I think one of the very smart things that Marvel is doing is they're trying to, instead of just stamping out carbon copy comic book movies, they're taking each of their characters and saying, all right, what is this character? What is interesting about them? And they'll make, like Ant-Man's a caper movie. Or, Iron Man is just a straight up, superhero action movie. Or, parts of Captain America wrestles with what it is to be American, projecting power and all that, and kind of political thrillers, even though I think that's kind of overblown the way they talk about it. Anyway, so their movies are very different. Or like, Guardians of the Galaxy, total sci-fi space opera.
And that's another one I had never heard of, and I was like, what?
Exactly.
It's got a raccoon in it?
See, that's the thing, that is the great... I think Guardians of the Galaxy, in addition to probably being Marvel's most enjoyable movie, it might be their greatest feat of all time. Because now it's, hey, look, they made a really great movie with a talking raccoon.
Yeah.
These bastards...
It might be my favorite.
Yeah, it's a lot of people's favorite. These people can do anything, and so when it's kind of like Doctor Strange, it's this trippy, magical, modern sorcerer guy. I don't, say no more. Coming from Marvel Studios, Benedict Cumberbatch is in it, playing Stephen Strange. I don't even need to see the previews. I'll be there, November 4th. It's going to be, it could be good. And that's the other thing that is amazing, and why I'm so interested in what Marvel is doing is I don't think there's definitely not been one awful Marvel movie. And most of them have been, pretty, at least enjoyable.
Yeah, at least you're entertained.
Yeah, there has not been one train wreck. There's not even been one really bad movie in there. And this is like the 14th movie?
Yeah.
So, yeah. It's I am excited. Doctor Strange in case you guys didn't know.
In case you haven't seen the previews every 5 minutes or the posters everywhere and the billboards and
That's right. In case the Disney marketing arm and the Marvel marketing arm didn't punch you from left and right, just heads up, Marvel's coming out with a new movie.
guess what?
That's right. So what's your next one?
So my next one is a movie called The Girl on the Train. And I think it might be like this year's Gone Girl. It looks like a really good thriller, based on a book. It stars Emily Blunt. Let me look. I want to make sure I'm telling you guys exactly what it's about, because I actually haven't read the book, but I am thinking about reading the book.
Yes, Sonia. What is the movie called The Girl on the Train
It's about this girl who's on a train.
Really?
Yeah, and every day as she's commuting to work, she passes this house, and she kind of becomes obsessed with the couple that lives in the house, and gets involved in a mystery in their house. I think the wife turns up missing or something like that. But I think the previews look really interesting, and I'm kind of into it.
I think a lot of people are. I think that's, Gone Girl, done by David Fincher. It's a David Fincher movie, so I had to go watch it. But that might be one of the most horrifying movies of all time. Because I've seen a couple couples like that.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's not horrifying because, oh God, wouldn't it be terrible if that happened? It's horrifying because I think I could see my friends doing this. I think I could see so-and-so doing this to her husband.
That's horrifying.
Oh, it is. Oh, definitely. And it's just, so when you watch the movie and you see how easy it is to completely vaporize someone's life, it was just like, oh, good Lord.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So I'm excited for The Girl on the Train. It's, I just think it looks really cool.
Who's that directed by?
It is directed by Tate. I'm going to get his name wrong, so I need to make sure. Tate Taylor. And Tate Taylor directed The Help, which I actually haven't seen. He also did, let's see, I'm looking, director.
All right.
Help, Get On Up, and then Girl on the Train.
All right. Cool.
So I didn't even see The Help, actually.
That's fine. I've heard mixed things about it. It's the people that have praised it to me are people that I don't necessarily trust.
Right.
It's that kind of movie, so I never ended up going to see it.
Well, I like a really well-made thriller, and I think this looks like that. So I'm in.
Yeah.
What's your next pick?
My next pick is a remake of a little-known 1996 movie called Independence Day. Not really, but if you have seen the previews for The Arrival, you could be forgiven for thinking that this is another Independence Day movie.
By the way, Arrival was also on my list.
That's right. But I browbeat it out of her offline. So take that. I am really one of these people that is nice on a podcast, and then I'm a monster behind the scenes. It's really quite awful.
That's funny. You're not nice on the podcast.
I love that joke. All right. This is a movie about multiple UFOs come down at multiple points on the Earth, and the United States government and the Army and everything have to figure out, all right, what's going on here? So they grab a linguistic expert, Amy Adams, and a mathematician, played by Jeremy Renner, who has a FPGA score of, 10. Anyway, still might be good. And they go and they try to figure out why these aliens came. And what seems to be interesting about it is, instead of the aliens coming and destroying the Earth, in Independence Day, that was one of the things, is these aliens came and everybody on Earth immediately united and went off and fought aliens. But this seems to posit these aliens come to Earth, it probably would be very difficult to talk to them. And while we're not talking to them and while we don't know what they're doing here, every country on Earth is freaking out and dealing with it in their own way.
Yeah.
So, we're trying to figure it out, while Russia, they're dealing with the aliens hovering over Moscow in a totally different way. So can we figure out what's going on with the aliens before the Russians or the Chinese or the British start shooting and piss off the aliens and then they nuke us all? So I think it's it looks to be kind of a little bit more interesting.
It's a little bit more of a thoughtful Independence Day.
Exactly. But let's give Independence Day their due, because even if I'm looking at one of the posters for Arrival, and which comes out on
November 11th.
November 11th. And what I'm seeing is essentially a big, black, round, very Independence Day looking spaceship.
Yeah.
That instead of, going left to right and kind of hovering over the whole city, it's like up on end. It's like on one edge. Like picture a coin on its edge. It's almost like they took the first 15 minutes of Independence Day, took even the craft designs, said, you know what? Instead of holding it like this, we're going to hold it like this. All right, let's get going. Let's make a movie.
Yeah.
And then they just go off and do it. So I'm excited. I don't know anything about it. The preview looks pretty good. But I
think the preview looks really good.
Yeah, it does. It does. I think that's one of the things I'm nervous about, is that 2016 has reinforced more than the normal degree how untrustworthy trailers can be. They can really mess with your head. All right, what's your next one?
So my next one actually isn't going to come out in theaters. It's going to come out on Netflix.
What?
It is, but it's still a movie.
No! Oh, fine.
It is called Mascots, and it is the new Christopher Guest movie.
All right.
Are you gonna let it slide?
I take back my... Well, actually, you know what? I'm going to let it slide.
Because you're going to break the rules anyway, so...
One, I'm going to break the rules, but actually, I want to preview something for the end of the year that I think we need to talk about real quick, which is, we've been talking about how movies and TV are going together. And
yeah.
Usually we have our favorite TV list, our favorite movie list, our favorite, actors and actors. No. This year, it's our favorite entertainment list. We're gonna break down the wall between television and movies.
I think that's an awesome idea.
It's gonna be one list with the best stuff out there. All right, so mascots.
So here's why this is on my list. I think mascots are really funny. Like I don't know why I think mascots are really funny. I think it's really funny when they fall and hurt themselves or people punch them. I don't know why I think that's so funny. Anyway, Christopher Guest is making one of his mockumentaries about mascots all competing for something I believe called the Fluffy Award.
Oh no.
And it's basically like Best in Show, but for mascots. And I think that sounds amazing, and I can't wait to see it. And I'm stoked it's coming out on Netflix, because then that means I can watch it right away.
That is cool. When is that coming out?
October 23rd.
Oh snap! All right, so I guess we'll probably have to talk about it. So, cool. All right, excellent.
Are you a fan of Christopher Guest movies?
I am, but sometimes I just don't catch up with them. I am definitely a fan of them.
I love Best in Show, and this sounds like that, but for mascots. And so those are all things that I really like, so I'm into it.
Cool. All right, let me take a look at my last
I think
film.
you have two more.
Do I? Oh, I skipped over one.
You did.
I'm sorry. All right, then my next one, I was talking about directors that sometimes need rehabilitation earlier. I was talking about, how directors can kind of do damage to their reputation, but sometimes they can still produce meaningful and interesting work, and you shouldn't just write someone off because they've become some kind of caricature in the popular mind. And I really need you to keep all of that in mind.
Okay.
Because my next movie is Hacksaw Ridge, directed by Mel Gibson.
Oh, geez.
Now, hold on. Stop right there, Mansfield.
I have a bunch of things I would say, but then we would get the explicit tag on our podcast.
Now, you can't... See, here's the thing. Say everything you want, and I will probably agree.
And I will bleep it.
No, I'm not going to bleep it. I don't have time for that. But I would probably agree with you on all of it.
Yeah.
As a person, he is reprehensible. He is, awful in a lot of different ways. As a director, however, he's fantastic. He is a really good director. So I think one of the first movies, was it the first movie? He directed Braveheart.
Yeah.
Goes on and wins the Oscar. It pulls a Kevin Costner. Wins the Oscar. Is a fantastic movie that is unbelievably rewatchable. It is. You could just dip into that movie at any point. It's great. Then he directs Passion of the Christ, which frankly I did not see.
I did not see it either.
But it made a boatload of money, and a lot of people really liked that movie. Then he makes Apocalypto. Now, Apocalypto is a movie about, taking place in the Mayan civilization. It's not in English. It's 100% subtitles. There are no stars in it, but it's a fantastic movie, and it really, treats that the characters in that movie with the same level of interest, the same level of nuance, the same level of real humanity that he did with the Scots in Braveheart, or he does with any of his other movies. That's the thing about, in a way, Mel Gibson's a lot like Kevin Costner in the way he directs. Is his first and number one thing is give the character something interesting to do and make them kind of human. Because I think when it was announced that he was directing Apocalypto, it was, he's going to, take a bunch of Native American or Native Mexican actors, and he's just going to kind of ham up that story, and here's a white man going in and making this. But if you watch it, it is fantastic. And he, like about 2 minutes in, you can see he loves these characters. He gives them little human, fun character moments. He does all the things you would do with any other character, any other movie, to humanize them and get you to really feel for them and kind of identify with these people. And then when all the awful things start happening, and it's this kind of tour of horribles throughout the end of the Mayan civilization, it's great. You really feel for it. It really breaks your heart. It really tears you up. He definitely has a love of suffering.
Yeah.
And torture from the roles he's taken, but also from some of the movies he's made. You can tell that subject really does something for him. Hacksaw Ridge is about... hold on for a second. It's about basically a conscientious objector. I believe I already said earlier in the podcast that I was having a stroke. A conscientious objector in World War II that doesn't want to go fight. Now, it's kind of like we've had stories about I'm not going to Vietnam, or I'm not going to the Gulf War, or I'm not doing this, or whatever, but you haven't seen a lot of stories about people that I'm not going to fight Nazis. It stars Andrew Garfield, Vince Vaughn, Sam Worthington, another actor who has
Sam Worthington is Freddie Prinze Jr.
He has a nearly perfect FPJ score of 1.5.
Yes.
Hugo Weaving is in this. Rachel Griffiths. Anyway, this is Mel Gibson's first directorial work since Apocalypto. It looks fantastic. Mel Gibson really knows how to present a movie on screen. It's about, Desmond Doss, who's an Army medic. He goes through the war, and he's at the Battle of Okinawa. And it looks so good. It looks like I'm just very excited for it.
We have talked about this on an earlier podcast about how do you separate someone's bad behavior from their work.
Yeah.
And Mel Gibson is one of those people that I just can't separate it. Like, I could watch Lethal Weapon because that was like before I knew. I
Right.
guess, but like I can't bring myself to watch anything new.
Well, you're going to have to
We'll see about that.
because we're going to be talking about Hacksaw Ridge at some point.
We'll have to bring on a guest. We'll see.
Oh, come on.
We'll see.
So actually, wait.
All right, you go see Bridget Jones's Baby.
Okay, yeah, all right. That's easy for me. I think you calculated too quickly, Mansfield.
Damn it.
Fine. Oh no, don't throw me into that briar patch.
Foiled again.
Yeah, no, I'll go see Bridget Jones' Diary. Yeah, well, we'll see. I do see where you're coming from, but I think, and this we'll connect up with this in our in our fan segment in a little while. I think I'm just getting over people being outraged. Like, in a weird way, our culture has become so unforgiving, even while it needs to be outraged about a lot of stuff, that it's kind of like I can't keep score on everybody. And the amount of talent that we're throwing away because somebody said something somewhere. I mean, we were talking about it last night on the Pop Show where, an American gymnast doesn't put her hand over her heart. People are freaking out. It's just like, everybody knock it off. I get people not liking Mel Gibson. It makes total sense. It's been 10 years since he did that. How long does somebody have to be away from the thing that they love and are really good at before we say, all right, that's enough?
I don't know if I'm ready to take him back yet.
I hear you, but there's a lot of actors that have done a lot worse stuff that have come back a lot quicker than he did.
Right.
And it's, I think, and I think that's part of it. Is I agree he needed a timeout. He needed people. I mean, he needed his reputation to be beaten up. He needed to have the way we looked at him changed. All of that is definitely true, but I'm not sure. I guess that's the thing. Is I'm against the death penalty in all arenas, including career deaths, unless they're like it still is difficult for me to say, unless they're like a Bill Cosby level,
right?
Whatever. And then, well, see, that's the thing about Bill Cosby. He's got to go to jail. That's the thing.
Yeah.
So, say what you want about Mel Gibson. I don't think he's done anything that deserves jail time. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's where I'm drawing the line.
There you go.
Drawing the line. Jail. So, actually, if I did that, though, Robert Downey Jr. would be out.
True.
So, anyway, Hacksaw Ridge. Looking forward to it.
All right. Are we ready for my last pick?
Yes.
Okay. So I debated this one, but I am going to go see it. I am looking forward to it. It's Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, which, of course, is the prequel to the Harry Potter movies. Because I am the completist, I will have to go see it. But I am worried, and we've talked about this on the trailer special bulletin we did a couple weeks ago. I am a little worried that this is going to be like The Hobbit, where it's like not much of a story there, but I'm still going to see it. And I mean, the previews look all right.
Yeah, the previews look pretty good. Well, let me step back. The previews look pretty good. The special effects are gorgeous. The world it creates is really very beautiful and interesting and intriguing. But for me, the Harry Potter movies have always been a distant second to the books. There's something about and for me it's the world that gets created.
Yeah.
That I'm more interested in than the actual plottings and scenes and all that stuff. The acting is really good. The directing in most of them is fantastic, but I always kind of watch them and then realize, oh yeah, that's right. These, it's wizards pointing wands at each other and shooting little balls of light 90% of the time when they do this stuff.
Yeah, I love the Harry Potter movies. I really do, and I love the books too.
Yeah.
And I look forward to returning to the world.
Yeah.
You know, and that's how I felt reading Harry Potter and the Cursed Child too.
Did you finish it? Have you finished it yet?
I did finish it.
And?
I thought it was good.
All right.
I liked it. You know, I'm not super in love with it. I don't want to really read it again, but I enjoyed it.
Right.
Because I like being in the world.
Right.
And that's probably how I'll feel about this movie too. I am looking forward to it, therefore it made the list. But I'm worried that it's going to disappoint me.
Cool. I agree. I'm with you. Supposedly J.K. Rowling has already written a script for a sequel. They're planning a trilogy. It's going to be... I do think that this is an interesting way for them to do a prequel, which is take minor mentioned characters that you don't know their beginnings, you don't know their ends, you don't know what happened to them. They're just mentioned somewhere, and then just do a whole story on that. Because then, then it's kind of like technically it's a prequel, but it may as well just be a whole different new movie.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Ooh. Excuse me.
Are you bored?
Yeah, I'm bored, Sonia. 2 nights in a row, 2 podcasting sessions in a row, you have bored me.
You're welcome.
Stop calling out my yawns. I'm old. Leave me alone.
You'll sleep well tonight.
That's right.
So what's your last pick?
Allied. I am breaking rules.
You are.
I am picking Allied because it's Robert Zemeckis' new movie. How often do we get a movie by the director of Back to the Future, the director of Castaway, the director of Forrest Gump, the director of Who Framed Roger Rabbit? This is
Didn't we just get a movie from him last year?
Maybe. The point is, he's got a new movie, and it's called Allied. It's about Brad Pitt and Marion Cotillard. Don't check my pronunciation.
I think you're right.
And it's about them somehow in World War II doing something. That is the extent of my knowledge. Oh, wait a minute. Look at this. Wow. All right. I am now reading from the Wikipedia page of Allied, and this movie might have just rocketed up in my interest. During World War II, in Casablanca, 1942.
Yep.
A spy assassin, Max Vitan, Brad Pitt, and a French spy, Marianne, I cannot say that last word in French, fall in love and marry during a mission to kill a German official. This could be the second movie in the Casablanca connected universe.
I don't think it's supposed to be connected to Casablanca, but I will.
This is like...
But let's pretend it is.
We could pretend it is, because this is like 6 months later. These guys are probably hanging out in Rick's bar right now.
Awesome. Now I want to see it. Now I'm going to put it on my list.
That's right. Lizzie Kaplan's in it. We got a new soundtrack by Alan Silvestri. This is great. It's fantastic. It was written by Steve Knight, who also wrote other stuff. Point is, bunch of stuff that now that I'm looking through it, I'm okay. Oh, Pawn Sacrifice. I watched that. That was all right. Oh, he directed Locke from 2014. That was with Tom Hardy, I think, wasn't it? That was good. I heard somewhere. I didn't have a podcast back then. I didn't see a whole lot of movies. Anyway. Point is, Robert Zemeckis has a new movie. It's going to be awesome. Can't wait. Topic 2 is another installment in our intermittent series. What is the internet outraged about today? Well, it looks like it's outraged about some things, but I read an interesting piece on Trek Movie the other day. It's one of the sites that I follow. They follow a lot of Star Trek news, and they're actually usually pretty good about it. And it was written by John Duchek. I hope I'm saying that right. I've never actually met the man. And he wrote an editorial for them, Why I Embraced Star Trek, Brandon Braga's Star Trek, years after unfairly blaming him. And essentially what this is a passionate Star Trek fans' apology to somebody that they vilified for what they thought was kind of destroying the thing that they loved. Back in the mid-2000s, when Star Trek's fortunes were kind of going into the ground, a lot of fans blamed executive producer Rick Berman and co-executive producer Brannon Braga. He produced a lot on Voyager, and then executive co-produced Enterprise, which was the last television series on the air. They got a lot of heat, a lot of stress, a lot of vitriol. And it's funny because Ducek used to go on a Star Trek board that I used to go on, TrekWeb, the late, I wouldn't say great, but the late TrekWeb.com. And that was one of the places I noticed that Star Trek fans were really kind of going nuts and kind of getting very tense and very attacking. Not all Star Trek fans, but it seemed to definitely be a significant thread, which I think we've seen continued with some of the reaction to the J.J. Abrams movies. Anyway, I got to hand it to John Ducek here because, you know, he kind of wrote about where he was in his life, wrote about watching these things, and then he writes about, you know what, so years later I went back and watched Enterprise and Voyager, and I really liked them. They're really good, and I don't know what I was thinking. You know, and so he goes on, next, I decided to do something that I had not planned to do, apologize. So he writes this huge apology to Brannon Braga and kind of does his best to resuscitate Braga's reputation in the Star Trek community. And it got me thinking about all of the things over the last couple years that we've been going through with these fandoms that just seem to be getting very angry, going very nuts, and makes me wonder kind of what is it when fans love something and they kind of take ownership of it, they bring it into their lives and bring it close to their hearts, but it's ownership of something that they have not created, they don't own, but if they didn't love it so much, the studios or the book companies or the record companies or whatever would not be able to produce it. So without fans, the stories we love don't get made. But without the strong producers that can stand up to the heat, I guess, or worst case, you know, if the producers cave into fandom and just become fan service, the stories that we love kind of either evaporate or never get made at all. Right. And I was trying to kind of write down on the back of an envelope kind of the fan freakouts that we've had. You know, we've had, even back in the 80s, Michael Keaton as Batman. Like, oh my God, you can't make Beetlejuice Batman. There was that big freak out. Right. And then that Batman movie comes out of nowhere. Or not comes out of nowhere, sorry. It comes out and just is the biggest thing in pop culture for, 4 or 5 years. It was massive. Right. Then in the early 2000s, you have Daniel Craig.
James Bond can't be blonde.
Exactly. There was a boycott movement based on the fact that Daniel Craig's hair was blonde, James Bond couldn't be blonde, and that we can't do this. Right. Then there was Heath Ledger cast as the Joker, and I think that you can see a pattern developing here.
Yes.
Heath Ledger cast as a Joker. What, some dumb cowboy, that cowboy that doesn't talk much in Brokeback Mountain, and he was in 10 Things I Hate About You, this teeny bopper whatever. Who the heck, why is he going to play the Joker? Jack Nicholson, after all, this is where fans forget about stuff. Jack Nicholson, after all, was great in the classic, by that point. Yeah. 1989 Batman. Then Ben Affleck gets cast as Batman. Now that I think about it, stay away from Batman. This seems to be the pattern. Just don't get cast in any Batman. Anyway, Ben Affleck gets cast. People freak out again. Oh my God, this is the worst thing that happened. I can't believe it's happening. This movie's gonna be so awful. Batman vs Superman is gonna suck. And what's the thing you heard when Batman and Superman came out, and a lot of people did say it sucked. It was awful.
Yep.
It was not good. It was boring. But Ben Affleck might be the greatest Batman ever put on screen. Ben Affleck is the best thing in there. Ben Affleck is an amazing Batman. He is the greatest. So, it's... Then there was Michael B. Jordan, a African-American actor, cast as Johnny Storm in, take a drink, last year's Fantastic Four.
We can't go a whole podcast without talking about Fantastic Four.
No, we can't. So, and that's the thing, is Michael B. Jordan was great. The movie was awful, but it had nothing to do
with him. Right.
So then we have these freakouts where it's kind of like, all right, well, just don't listen to fans. They don't know what they want.
Right.
They're.
Well, let's not forget there's two Star Wars movies in a row that star women.
That's right.
It's just going to ruin everything.
Well, here's the thing, and actually, thank you for saying that.
And women can't be Ghostbusters either.
Well, that's the thing, is that transitions us into the next thing, which is, okay, I heard a couple of people complain about 2 Star Wars movies in a row being cast with women. Then this week, Zendaya, I hope I'm saying that right because I'm old, is supposedly cast as Mary Jane Watson in the new in the new Spider-Man movie. And this might be fun for you people at home who know who she is. I think she's African American.
I believe she is.
She is, but it looks like her lineage is pretty interesting because she looks, 1, gorgeous, 2, she's got one of those faces where she might be African American. You know what? She might be Filipino. You know what? Are we sure she's not Puerto Rican? Maybe she's Mexican. She could be anything. She's got one of those faces where you could tell me she was from India, and I'd go, oh yeah, look at that. And there's, James Gunn, director of Guardians of the Galaxy, kind of pushed back and talked about how color of your skin doesn't really have anything to do with the character that you're portraying, and it doesn't really matter if you switch things up. This is a modern era, yada, yada, yada.
FYI, I looked it up. She is African American.
Okay. But
her father is black, her mother is white.
Okay. So
there you go.
Okay, cool. I am wondering how many people were really pissed about this? Because you and I were talking about this earlier in the week, and I went on Twitter and said, God, is there another tidal wave? A Leslie Jones, Ghostbuster-style tidal wave of hate coming down on her? And every tweet I saw was, I don't care what the haters say. I think she's going to be great.
What haters?
Exactly. And then I just kind of scrolled through. I was like, I have not found one tweet against this.
Yeah, and then you read an article though, and they have like a screenshot of like one angry tweet, and it's like someone who doesn't even have a Twitter icon, and
that's right.
It's like someone who made an account just to be a troll.
That's right. And then which has me wondering, did the author want to write this story? They couldn't find any tweets, so they just started an account, threw one out there, took a picture of it. Now they got their blog post.
I mean, I'm sure that I'm sure there were people that were upset because that's what they get upset about.
Maybe. I'm sure there are. And this is kind of one of the things I'm thinking about. There's going to be there are people that believe the earth is flat. They really believe the earth is flat. There are people,
Wait, are you saying the earth isn't flat?
Yes, I'm saying the earth isn't flat.
What?
There are people, this is one of my favorite ones. There are people in America, and probably around the world, that believe that dinosaurs never existed. And that the CIA created the legend of dinosaurs to keep people from building time machines and traveling into the past. I love that one. There are people, my point is, there are people that will believe or say any dumb thing you can think of. In a country of 335 million people, to say nothing of the 7-odd billion people spread around the rest of the world, if anything happens anywhere, you're going to find people that are going to say dumb stuff about it.
Yes.
So the question is, should we, let me step back. Sometimes fans give feedback that is interesting or meaningful. You'll have creators that take on a property, don't really respect it, don't really like it, haven't really thought about it, and then they make some dumb thing. Actually, this takes us back to Batman and Joel Schumacher. The way that guy talks about comic books and talks about his task, he doesn't understand anything about the milieu he's in, and it's not any surprise he goes on to make a couple of the worst movies of all time. So fans should be listened to. For example, going back to Spider-Man, when Sam Raimi stepped away and Sony was afraid they were going to lose the rights because they couldn't get a movie made in time, they grabbed Andrew Garfield. They said, all right, we're restarting Spider-Man. We're going to call it The Amazing Spider-Man, and we're going to make a whole Marvel-like cinematic connected universe. Fans were pretty rightly perplexed by starting over after only 3 movies, and it seemed like they could keep going. Kind of voiced their concern. The first one didn't do well. Sony, being the obstinate studio that it is, insisted on carrying on, made a second Amazing Spider-Man, which was also kind of mediocrely received. And, if it crashed and burned. If Sony had listened to their fans or listened to the feedback or listened to the vibe, they might have not gone down this awful path. So I guess I'm wondering, what kind of attitude should creators take towards fans? It sounds like, as we talk this through, they should probably ignore them.
It depends on, I guess it depends on what they're saying and how they're saying it.
Right.
So, I know there's kind of, a very vocal, angry fan base out there for things that they kind of freak out about movies and TV shows and video games before they even see it or play it.
Right.
And it's like, hey, maybe you should, see it before you freak out and declare it the worst thing ever.
Right.
So it's like, you don't listen to that.
Right.
But maybe say there was a whole hashtag where people were trying to get them to give Elsa a girlfriend in Frozen 2.
And Captain America a boyfriend.
Right. But, so these are people that just want to be represented. Mm-hmm. And it's like, are they necessarily trying to influence the story? It's like, maybe, but I think what they're really trying to make is a point, hey, we would like to be represented. Right. So, maybe there's something there to listen to.
Right. Yeah. And I think
it's so tricky because people can take movies and TV shows and video games and comic books and stuff, and we take them so personally because we wrap up so much of our identity in those things. Like my casual acquaintances will be like, Sonia, she has red hair and glasses and she really likes Star Wars.
And she won't shut up about Star Wars. Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
Exactly. So then when you identify so closely with something and then maybe they make a sequel or a reboot or something and it's not what you want it to be, some people lash out, make threats, act like jerks. Some people, offer constructive criticism. And some people like me would be like, hey, well, maybe that one wasn't for me. Maybe the next one will be.
Right. Right.
I think part of the fun of going to movies is talking about it after. And that's one of the things you and I used to do all the time. We used to go to the movies, then we'd go out to coffee afterwards and we just pick apart that movie and talk about what we loved and what worked and what didn't work and explore why it worked for me and it didn't work for you. And that's just, and if it didn't work for you, then you just let it go.
Yeah. Well,
to be fair, we didn't have Twitter back then to go on there and harass, you know.
Well, I think we could all agree that harassing and making threats and stuff is. I think part of me is a little irritated that actions like that get lumped into fandom. That's not fandom.
Yeah,
that's those are psychopaths. Those guys would be chasing women at bus stops 20 years ago. Those guys,
Right.
those guys are damaged people doing damaged things.
It's a bunch of, it's a bunch of nerds who were probably bullied in school and now they're
Right.
bullies on the internet.
Yeah, well, see, that's the thing. People always go to the bullies on bullies. These guys are just holes.
Yeah.
These guys are probably just
Yeah.
well, it's funny you should say that, because now that I'm thinking about it, because I'm going to mention the Emmys, us going out and talking about these things and obsessively dorking out about these things and drawing them close to our heart kind of taught me what I needed to know, taught me what I need to pay attention to get much better at my craft, to get much, to accomplish things. I did get very lucky with, winning a couple Emmys because of that. I might not get so lucky when I finally publish this book, which might be great, or it might be a train wreck.
I was going to ask you, as someone who writes, how much credence would you give some fans' input?
Well, it's interesting because I was noticing something about Star Wars that, George Lucas has a very fraught relationship with his fans.
For sure.
And one of the things he said, he said consistently, is he's never understood Boba Fett's appeal. He's never understood why people love Boba Fett so much. So it's almost like
So weird.
he doesn't understand something pretty fundamental to the first 3 movies that he made, or, the first trilogy he made. There's something important about it that the guy that created it doesn't get it.
Right.
So you should listen to fans, and fans can tell you. That's one of the things. I'm going to drop a name here. Back when I was used to review movies and write on movies, I got to interview Ron Howard, and I talked to him about the subject of test screenings, and kind of the bromide in Hollywood is, test screenings. You take your movie and you put it in front of a bunch of dumb people that don't know anything about movie making, and then you have to listen to what they say, and oh God, that's awful. And then I asked, what do you think about test screenings and the whole process? Is it kind of a headache? Does it stifle your creativity? Blah, blah, blah. And he goes, no, test screenings are great. Test screenings are, it's like opening your play off Broadway. You put it on your feet. You put it in front of an audience. The things that you thought were going to be funny are not funny. The things you didn't even think twice about, people are jumping out of their seats for. And I've kind of seen this for myself, which is, now that I'm thinking about it, I think I am kind of incorporating this into what I'm doing, is feedback from audiences can tell you a lot of things. They can't tell you how to fix something. Like if they don't like a character or if a moment lands wrong, they can't tell you what to do to fix it, but you better listen when they say, I don't really like this part. It's not, 9 times out of 10, and this is where the creators have to put their ego down. The creator needs to listen to what's bumping an audience, what's not being understood, what's something that, the author or the director or something really liked and they really were enjoying it, but the audience couldn't care less about it. So I think you do need to listen. And that's why one of the reasons that this has taken so long is I'm kind of going to I've kind of written 5 or 6 chapters. I'm in the process of polishing them now. I have the rest of the book mapped out, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to take those 5 or 6 chapters, have a bunch of people read them, interview them, figure out, this thing that's been in my head for 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
Has it gotten so twisted around its own axle and so messed up and so whatever? Is this just something that I love? Is this something that's really great? Is this something that's a total train wreck? And you can't really know. That's one of the awful things about being a creator is you make something and you don't know what it is. I think David Ayer went through that with Suicide Squad. And actually, now I think about it, Zack Snyder went through that with Batman versus Superman. Is they were expecting to put those movies out and have them be loved.
Right.
Have them
I would assume that that's the case for everybody who's making movies. They
Yeah.
assume that nobody's like, I'm making a crappy movie. They all think
Exactly.
they're making a good movie.
Yeah, and well, that's the thing. It's even worse than that. Is you can try to make a movie, and it becomes a crappy movie, and as you're making it, you can kind of see that. So by the time you put it out, you know in your heart, all right, this one missed. Let's put it out there and let's move on to the next one.
Right.
But then you can be in the situation where you truly believe it is great. It's hitting all the notes you want it to hit. Watching it gives you the same feeling that you had when you're watching great movies that you love, but you're just so close to it that you're kind of blind.
Yeah.
That's one of the hard things for, especially in editing film, is you've watched the footage so much and you've put it together so much, and you know all the footage that got cut out, and you know all the footage that was shot. So in a weird way, you're kind of blind to the thing that you're creating. And the real eyes that see it are the audience.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to give it to an audience to tell you if you're nuts or not. And that's kind of what Ron Howard was talking about, is you see what the audience says, then you bring the movie back in, then you edit it and cut it. And if you look pound for pound, movie for movie, Ron Howard's movies are better. He's got one of the better track records in Hollywood. So there must be something to it. So you do have to listen to fans. They do, I guess that's it. We've kind of gone down all these roads here. You just have to tune out the haters, and they almost kind of tune themselves out. If they haven't seen something and they're already asking for boycotts,
Right.
or they're making death threats, or they're focusing on actors or actresses and making their days awful, that's who you tune out.
Yeah.
But if people that really love Spider-Man are saying, I don't understand why they're doing this, maybe they shouldn't go down this road. Or we saw that with the Ghostbusters thing. We saw, I think now it's pretty apparent there were 2 or 3 reactions. There was one awful misogynistic reaction.
Yes.
Then there was the reaction of, this seems like a weird way to revisit Ghostbusters. I'm not sure I'm really digging it. And I think I would put myself in that category. Then there was the, it's great that women we're diversifying roles. It's great that they're hiring all these really funny actresses to do it. Let's go. And those people were almost kind of loving the movie before it came out. And, granted, they were not nearly as large or vocal as the haters. But I think they were there. And then there was the, let's just see what happens. Hopeful, but let's just see what happens. And I think you were in that category.
Yeah.
And it came out, and it turned out, meh. So, yeah.
It was funny, but not...
That's right.
Not as funny as it should be.
Right. And
I feel like as a writer, like, I would listen to fans' input, but I think I would be pretty selective of what I would be willing to listen to.
Right.
That's how I would do it. But I assume that maybe that's what other people would do as well.
Exactly, because that's the kind of thing is you have to be very careful who you listen to.
Yeah.
Because there are people that I love, that I really respect, that I am not going to show them early drafts of my book.
Right.
Because it's just not up their alley. Like, you don't, if somebody is not into musicals, don't show them your musical and ask them what they think.
Right.
Because that's just going to end in tears. Because 1, they're not really going to like it. And 2, the feedback they give you is going to wreck the thing that's probably great about it.
Yeah.
So, I guess that's the thing, what we've learned. Tune out the haters. People who issue threats aren't even real fans anyway, so get them out of it. And then sometimes listen to the rest that are left. But sometimes this is the awful part for me, you just have to hold your nose, jump, and that's it. that brings us to our favorite headlines of the week. And this week, my favorite headline is I don't have one. I did not make one. I didn't find one that really struck my fancy. So I said, you know what? I'm not doing this. I am going to not turn in my homework. So what do you think of that, podcast fans?
And I'm such a good little student that I did.
That's right. I actually like your homework.
Oh, well, thank you. You could copy mine.
I will. So, Sonia, would you like to tell them what your favorite headline of the week is?
So my favorite headline of the week is there's a promo out for the new Celebrity Apprentice with Arnold Schwarzenegger. And I'll be honest, I don't know if I'm really going to watch the show, but I really like the promo, and we have a link that you can go to.
That's right.
To watch it. And I don't know, Arnold Schwarzenegger hasn't made a movie that I wanted to see in a long time, and I'm kind of curious to see what he's going to do on the Celebrity Apprentice, because I like Arnold Schwarzenegger. So maybe I will watch it, actually.
That's the thing is I really like him as a personality. And actually, he's one of these. Here's the thing. He's one of these guys that's done some awful things in his private life. He's done some really shady, crappy things. But on screen, he's great. I'm kind of waiting for him to get to that Unforgiven moment in his career.
Right.
When he takes the well of built up love and built up persona that he's been putting down since the early 80s and starts to play with it like Clint Eastwood did in his later years, with Gran Turismo and Unforgiven and all that kind of stuff. I think that could be really great. I think he tried it with The Last Sheriff, The Last Stand a couple years ago.
I didn't see it.
Nah, it was not good. It kind of broke my heart because and I think it bombed, and I think he had done a couple movies that had also not done well. And then it was not good. Oh yeah, and then he did Terminator.
Right.
Genesis.
I would also like this show to do really well just to stick it to Trump.
I would. And then it's like...
That's kind of actually a good enough reason for me to watch it, now that I think about it.
Well, here's the thing, is, we say all this stuff about Trump, and, there was Arnold Schwarzenegger was at the center of another kind of off-the-wall candidacy. He became governor of the state that we live in, California. And, there's a contingent of society... Oh, my God, John Lovitz is on here. Stop right there. John Lovitz is on. All right, I'm watching it.
Anyway. I'm in.
You
didn't tell me John Lovitz was going to be on this.
That's right. You should have led with that. He's a top...
Celebrity Apprentice will have John Lovitz, also Arnold Schwarzenegger.
That's right. He's one of the top 5 performers in all-time Saturday Night Live history. That's great.
I disagree with that, but...
That's because you don't know crap about Saturday Night Live. Yeah, I said it. If he's not in the top 5, you're doing it wrong.
I disagree. Now we're going to have to do a segment someday about our top 5 SNL.
All right. Give me your number 1, then.
Phil Hartman.
All right. So you've redeemed yourself somewhat. This is an example. You know how many lists we're making that are basically the same lists?
I know.
We just did this, and I thought I was going to catch you by you not picking Phil Hartman, but you picked Phil Hartman, so forget it. Anyway, point is, Arnold Schwarzenegger, he really dug in and did the work. He really went to Sacramento, and he, say what you will about how he ran the state or whatever, but he was like a serious guy. We kind of joke. There's a certain contingent
he had plans.
He had plans and he had thoughts. He
wasn't like, I'm going to make California great again.
Yeah,
and just nothing specific.
Yeah, and he had his. They asked him stuff, and he knew what he was going. And then he went to Sacramento, and he really was in these late night meetings, and he did what a governor does. And then you look at Arnold Schwarzenegger, who through a lot of the 80s and 90s, that's interesting. Through a lot of the 80s and 90s, he wasn't exactly like Donald Trump, but he had this Donald Trump class kind of persona in the culture. He was kind of laughed at. He was kind of mocked. he was kind of dumb, or people thought he was kind of dopey and dumb, which is interesting because they were making fun of his accent.
Right, he's not dumb at all.
And it was a very pejorative reaction by people who thought of themselves as smart, which basically boiled down to, he talks differently than me, he must be stupid.
Right.
But anyway, then when you see, like, you know, seeing him in this Apprentice promo, I'm thinking, if he was running for president right now, I would have so much less stress in my life. If you plucked out Trump and put in Schwarzenegger, as ridiculous and silly as it would be, it's like, oh, okay, at least, you know, we don't have one party that is rocketing itself right into the side of a mountain. But instead, yeah.
Maybe Celebrity Apprentice is a gateway to, to political runs or, presidential runs. So maybe that's next.
Well,
although he wasn't born here.
That's right. So he couldn't. That's true. But he was in Predator, which had not one but 2 state governors.
True.
In that lineup, Jesse Ventura and Arnold Schwarzenegger starred in Predator for John McTiernan back in the 80s, and both later ran major states.
Hey, anything's possible.
That's right. So on that note, where we dream of an alternate universe where Arnold Schwarzenegger is running against Hillary Clinton, take that however you'd like.
I wouldn't change my vote anyway, but sure.
You know, that's the thing. I would definitely change mine. I would probably not be voting for some libertarian nobody that's not going to win. Anyway.
Throw away your vote on a third party. Go ahead and throw it away.
It's not throwing it away if everybody does it. See, your problem is you want to jump on the bandwagon. You want to say, I voted for the winner. I'm the best. You don't even care. You just run with the pack, Mansfield.
Yeah, that totally sounds like me.
Jump off the cliff with all the other lemmings.
Yep, that's me. You know me so well.
That's right. You do that, and I'm going to dream of a world where the Terminator's running for president. A much more serious, rational world than the one you happen to be inhabiting right now. What do you think about that?
I'll just say goodbye.
Bye! The Dorking Out Show is on Twitter at Dorking Out Show, where you can find Chris at Jet Jurgens and Sonia at The Sonia Show. You can read about Sonia's random adventures at thesoniashow.com and track the slow and creeping progress of Chris's novel and his other hijinks at jetjurgens.com. You can find out more about The Dorking Out Show at dorkingoutshow.com. While you're over there, you can support us by giving us a review on iTunes. We have a handy-dandy iTunes link to whisk you right back to 2007, where you can leave your review and 5-star rating in iTunes. We'd do it for your podcast. Want to dork out even more? Well, you can sign up for our newsletter, where you'll get all the headlines we use as fuel for the show. That's it for this week. Thanks for listening.